I'm Augie Thomas. President of the Hispanic American Labor Council. Jesse Rios here is our Vice President of the Hispanic American Labor Council. Secretary Treasurer. And we have several members here. Nils Guerrero from the Operating Engineers. We have Jose Guerrero also on our executive board, and several others. But then also Chad Hernandez from the Cicero Democratic Organization. American event spent Ron Maiden, the president of LACLA. Estela Munoz, the president of the Homes Club, Local 134 IBW. Miranda here from the Teamsters Union, Local 703.
All right.
I think I covered the leadership now. What we're going to do is introduce JB at that program, of course, and we'll have a couple of questions only, then we're going to proceed from there. So, JC, JP.
I'm JC. Either way. Thank you. Thank you very much.
He's been here. We came here 20 years ago.
Oh yeah.
I had him here at the Concordia restaurant 20 years ago when he ran for Congress.
That isn't my only time coming.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. But my first time, that is true. That is true. Augie, thank you. I mean, thank you for your friendship over these many years. And to many of you, thank you so much for your support. And I just can't, tell you how important it has been as I have, put this campaign together to spend time right here in Little Village, to meet people who are not only just the, everyday Illinoisans who care deeply about what's going to happen to this state, but also people who run organizations who are really trying to help in communities not only get out the vote, but also social service agencies and so many others. And so I'm just grateful for the kind welcome that I've received from so many people. I'm thrilled to be here. I really am. You all represent to me a very important organization and also a very important set of issues that I am trying to take with me to Springfield and become your governor. It is late, in my view, for to put Springfield back on the side of working families. It's been too long since somebody really focused on what's best for working families in Illinois, and that's what I'm trying to do in this campaign. I think for those of you who don't know me, maybe before I leap into some issues, I just wanted to personally introduce myself because, we have commercials on TV and we send a lot of mail and maybe you read things in the newspaper. But because I'm here, maybe I could start by saying, because I never get to say this on television or anywhere else, I've been married for 24 years to I see some of you were like, why would you be married for 10 years? But she's really my partner in everything in my life, and she's also incredibly tolerant, as you can imagine, letting me run for governor. She's also my partner in this effort. So she's been out campaigning with me everywhere, trying to go different directions so we cover as much territory as we possibly can. But I'll share with you that that very early on in this campaign, actually before I had even started to become a candidate, my name appeared in the newspaper in December of 2016 as somebody who might be thinking about running for governor. And truthfully, at the time, I wasn't really seriously thinking about running for governor. It was just something somebody had brought up, and I hadn't examined whether this made sense or not. And immediately after that, Bruce Rauner started taking shots at me. I wasn't a candidate, I was barely thinking about it, and he started taking shots at me. You know, like I was shocked, really, that all of a sudden, because I mean, gee, we have a Democratic primary to run, even if I decide to become a candidate, and here's the Republican already taking a shot at one guy. So, I saw this and I thought, oh, my wife is not going to like this. He's already, going after me. So I sent her this text with the article attached to it because I wanted her to see it, and I was waiting for, I sent it and I waited for the response back from her to see what she would say. And the first thing she said back to me by text was, boy, he must be pretty afraid of you if he's already taking shots at you. And so I thought, well, that's, a decent response, because I'm really waiting for her to say, well, we're not going to do this, And the second text I got from her was, we will crush him like the roach that he is. My wife to become your governor. But you'll get to meet her if you haven't already. Augie has, and he can vouch for her. She's terrific.
Her name? I'm sorry.
Her name is MK. MK. Believe it or not, she goes by initials too. I've searched the world over for someone who had initials and was willing to marry her. There she is. Mary Catherine. Yeah, exactly. And we have two kids. A 14-year-old daughter who's actually a state-ranked cross-country runner.
Oh, wow.
And I like to say, she obviously gets her athletic ability from me. And she's just a great girl. And my 12-year-old son, who's a football fanatic and a math whiz. Fortunately, they're very tolerant too. And they've been out on the campaign trail with me, and they've been involved in politics a little bit like I was as a kid. My mother walked me around knocking on doors for Democratic candidates when I was 11 years old. And I haven't stopped. I've been doing it ever since. I like to knock on doors for candidates. I was doing it in the municipal elections this last April. I was doing it back in 2016 and 15 on behalf of candidates that I care about, and I've been doing it almost every election cycle my whole life. So my kids are starting early, and maybe one day, well, I don't want to curse them with this, but maybe one of them will end up running for governor. But I guess it'll depend on how this all turns out. But I've been very fortunate to have a very supportive family, and they're my light and my joy. What's important about this campaign has been that across Illinois, people are hurting, really hurting. And I don't think it's been really well understood or talked about what's happened to families, not just in Cook County, but in Cook County and in the collar counties and all across central and southern Illinois. They don't have somebody who's standing on their side. There's nobody who's really saying, how are we going to improve our education system for our kids? It's just a question these days of how do we redistribute the money that we've got today. But we all know that, from the time that, I'm looking at some people in the audience who are maybe closer to my age, from the time that we were all kids to today, the kind of education you've gotten is much diminished. It's there are no longer after school programs, there are no longer sports programs, there are no longer depends on the school you're at, right? There's all kinds of things that have been taken away from classes across Illinois. Class sizes have gone up to, in some places, 35 and 40 and 45 kids in a classroom with one teacher. And if any of you were like me, in second or third grade, I needed a little extra help. And I was one of those kids who, somebody, the teacher, or sometimes I was embarrassed. So the teacher had to come around and look at my paper and, maybe help me a little extra. Well, imagine if you're in a classroom, you're a teacher, and there are 45 kids in that classroom, and there are 10 kids like me that need extra help. What happens to the other 35 kids? Or maybe the teacher has to decide, well, I can't help those 10. I've got to focus on the majority of the kids. But there's no way that you can do everything you need to do if you're a teacher with 40 or 45 kids in a classroom. And it isn't just about class size. Like I said, so many of the programs have gone out of school. So it's time for us to refocus on having a great kindergarten through 12th grade education in this state. I've spent years, in fact, I've spent more than 20 years focusing on how do we prepare kids for their K-12 education so that when they show up, they're ready to learn. Because as it turns out, 25% of kids who show up at kindergarten are not ready to learn. 25%, and guess where a lot of money gets spent? It's on those 25 kids, 25% of the kids. And many of those kids are never going to catch up. We try, we have remediation programs, we have so many ways in which we address it, and we should continue to do that. But if we could get those kids prepared to learn at kindergarten, when they start ready to learn, they're vastly more likely to graduate from high school. Vastly more likely. I mean, I'm talking about big numbers, like 50% more likely to graduate if they show up ready to learn in kindergarten. Isn't that interesting? That if you just focus on those very earliest years, you can have a huge difference on the trajectory of these kids' lives. And then when they graduate, by the way, they're much more likely to end up going to college, much more likely to get a job, much less likely to end up incarcerated. And there have been studies, 40-year longitudinal studies, you know, where they've followed these kids who got preschool and kids who didn't get preschool. And they, you know, watched them over 40 years, and this is what these studies have determined. So it's good for taxpayers. Put aside the question of what's good for the kids, though that is the most important thing. But it's good for taxpayers, it turns out, if we invest in those very earliest years. 85% of all the brain development that occurs, for all of us, occurs from 0 to 5. 85%. And yet we spend almost nothing on those kids. And we just assume that, well, we'll pick it up at age 5 when they show up at kindergarten or age 6. So we need to think about this hard and make sure that we've got, and this is something I proposed, universal preschool in the state. It will save us money. Don't let anybody fool you into thinking that if you spend some money on these kids when they're very young, that it doesn't pay off. It really does. And so, but these are the kinds of things that unfortunately our current governor doesn't think about. He doesn't think about, he doesn't really understand the difference, in my opinion, between an investment and an expense in government.
And you know investment.
And I'm saying in government, it's a little bit different though than in business, right? Because in government, you know, your job as governor is to invest in people. And those are your investments. You're investing in the future of the state by investing in people. And that's what you should be thinking about every day. How do we make this state better? How do we make people in the state, give them better health care, better education? How do we improve our prospects for creating jobs in the state? Those are the things you got to think about every single day, in my opinion, as governor. I think this governor looks at the budget and all he sees is a spreadsheet. And that's how he treats the budget. Instead, he seems like he cares more about spreadsheets than he does about people. And again, running government is about people. It's about making the state better, but not just the state, it's the people who live in the state. Let's talk about healthcare, because, you know, we've got a president who, we got a lot of things we could say about this president. And I want to say as a side note, by the way, that there's no candidate running for governor, and I really mean this, no candidate running for governor in Illinois who fought harder against Donald Trump than I did in 2015, 2016. And I'm talking about, I went to multiple states, I knocked on doors, I told you I like to do that. I phone banked, I raised money, I gave money, and I went on national television multiple times and I called him what he is. And now I think we all can all agree he really is. And that is, he's a racist and a xenophobe. And I haven't stopped calling him out. I mean, when he issued the executive order on immigration in February, I was out there protesting at O'Hare Airport. And I haven't stopped protesting. I mean, the man, every time, he's got a Muslim ban, he's got a wall he wants to build, every time, and now he wants to take away health care. He's been trying. And just because he didn't succeed the first time, you can hear it. He's still berating the senators over their votes. He's hoping, he said the other day, that McCain passes away so he can switch that vote. Can you imagine? He says these. This is a president of the United States. So he wants to take away health care from about 1 million people in Illinois. That's what would be the result. And for millions of other people, the result of his policies would be much higher premiums on your own health insurance policy. So we've got to protect ourselves. And we're not going to be able to get rid of this president unless Robert Mueller gets going faster. We're not going to be able to protect ourselves from Donald Trump until he's out of office. And so instead, we can do things here in the state of Illinois that will act as a firewall against what he's trying to do. And so I introduced a plan called Illinois Cares. It's a plan that would expand the ability of people to buy into the state's health insurance plan. It's cheaper. They can do it at cost. It's cheaper than your own private insurances for a middle-class family, people striving to get to middle class. So you can get basically a cut. I mean, that's money back in your pocket if you decide you want to switch from the private insurance that you might be paying for to this public insurance. We call it a public option. And then for people who don't have help from the federal government, the state government, through Medicaid or something else, and don't have a policy, so they fall into that hole where they can't afford, but they don't fit the income requirements at the low end. They can now afford it because this is a policy that would cost a little more than half, but about half, of what a private insurance policy would cost. So this is a way to expand health care coverage, not to everybody. We still need to get to everybody, but it would expand coverage and lower costs for many middle-class families and people striving to get to the middle class. And you know how much it would cost the taxpayers? Nothing.
Wow.
You know why? Because you're buying into it. You're buying in at cost. You're buying in at cost. That's the point. You're not having to pay the profits that a health insurance provider wants in their policy. It's because it's a state program. So Illinois Cares is the name of that program. Let me talk about one other thing. So I talked about education, I talked about healthcare. I'm the only candidate that has a plan in each of these areas, healthcare, education, and now I want to talk to you about jobs and job creation. So some of you may know that I founded 1871, which is the nonprofit small business incubator here in Chicago, and it's created more than 7,000 jobs, good paying jobs, and we brought capital in from all over the country. People wanted to invest in those small businesses and help them grow because they felt like they could make some money investing in those businesses. But it created a lot of jobs here. It's also created a lot of wealth among the people who started those businesses. And we can do that all across the state. We have the ability to do that all across Illinois. And here's the thing that I've learned over the years about this area of burgeoning small businesses. You know that 2/3 of all the jobs that get created in Illinois are created by small businesses? 2/3. So when we talk about job creation in the state, I know most people say, well, gee, can we get another Ford plant to move in? Can we get another manufacturing facility? Can we get a headquarters to move to Illinois? I'm in favor of all that, and we should go do that. And by the way, we have a governor who badmouths the state publicly. So if you're a company out of the state and you listen to this governor, you're not going to want to move to Illinois. So you need somebody who's actually going to try to market the state to people and get them. So that's very important to do, and we need economic development to invest in, so that we can create jobs through major economic development projects. But small businesses every day, churning, are the ones that are creating most of the jobs. So how can the state help? Well, first of all, the state should get out of the way, being a problem. That's one thing. But more importantly, the state can do 3 things, in my opinion, to help really grow small businesses and help people start new startup businesses. One is we got to provide access to capital. That's the #1 thing. If you've got a great idea and you want to start a business, you may have a terrific market and a product that you want to go introduce to the market, or a service. And it could be anything, by the way. It could be a new barber shop, or it could be a software company, whatever it is. But your biggest problem is finding capital to start that business. And you can't go to a bank, with your plan and say, loan me money, right? Nobody does that. So the state can start small business loan funds and micro loan funds that help people start businesses. There is a federal program that we can bring money in, so it isn't just This is not me saying, you know, hey, let's spend more money in Illinois. This is me saying there's money we can get from elsewhere to bring into Illinois that will allow us to create these funds so that small business people who want to start small business or people want to grow their small businesses, who can't access capital by going to a bank, can go to these small business loan funds or micro loan funds to get going. And along with it will come technical assistance, because there are an awful lot of people who, when starting a business, don't know how to deal with government regulation, they don't know how to do their own taxes or accounting for that business, but they may be highly creative people with a great idea. So we need to provide the technical assistance and then mentorship. When you put all three of those things together, capital, technical assistance, and mentorship, those are three really important ingredients for the success of small businesses and startup businesses. The state can do that, and I put out a plan that will allow us to do that in the state. So look, it's important to me to focus on the areas that people are really concerned about all across the state. The things that you think about, you know, which no doubt are education, healthcare, and jobs, among others, are many of the same things that you hear when you go to Carbondale, Illinois. Same things you hear in Peoria, in Cairo, you hear them in Rockford. I mean, it is, the challenges, they may be in a different order. You may hear somebody say jobs first, and then healthcare, and then education. You may hear education first. But these are the things that really matter all across the state. And what has Bruce Rauner done for us in any of these three areas? We had 0.5% job growth.
Nothing.
Last year. 0.5% job growth. That's in the bottom third of states in the United States. The bottom third. Oh, by the way, Illinois is 50th out of 50 states in state funding for education. 50th. I always thought if you said a state was 50th, you meant Mississippi. Not Illinois. I mean, I never heard Illinois was 50th in something. By the way, we're also 50th in credit rating now in the state. And once again, it's because Bruce Rauner, after 736 days of a crisis over the state budget, you know, we finally were able to get past the crisis that he created about the budget, and now here we are, he created another crisis about school funding. And we're trying to deal with that, right? You're reading about it every day. So we have real challenges, and many of them brought on by Bruce Rauner, and I think that the plans that I've introduced will help us overcome. Here's one very last and very important thing, and then I want to take a few questions. As many of you know, as I have focused my campaign on working families all across the state, I've received a lot of support from labor unions. 17 individual unions and the state AFL-CIO. And it's, I believe that, you know, many of you I've talked to before, the leadership across the state, I think, has come to the conclusion that not only do we need somebody who can win, but also somebody who actually is going to stand up and beat back all this right-to-work legislation. Agenda that is, you know, you remember when Bruce Rauner was running for office, he went around, I guess he took off his Rolex watch and put it in a drawer somewhere, and he put on a Timex watch, and then he went and got an LL Bean plaid shirt, I guess, and put that